All right, so my story starts with my father in Richmond, Indiana, for a couple reasons. One is my father is a big part of who I am today. He's a great man. He's pictured here today, and this was taken about a year ago at Henkel Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana, Butler University. My daughter is a student there, and he was there with my mom and my daughter and myself. And for him, it was a great day, not only to get to spend time with his granddaughter, but he got to go back to a place that was very important to him. He grew up in a small town about 10 miles from Richmond, Indiana. His father was a basketball coach, and when he was a kid, he actually attended the actual Hoosiers basketball game. Not the one that you saw in the movie, but the actual game. It's between Milan and Muncie Central. And my father told me that story growing up as a kid. It was always important to me, it was important to him. And at the time, he described his life very much like what I saw in movies like It's a Wonderful Life or A Christmas Story. Those picture postcard towns in the Midwest was the kind of town that he lived in. Unfortunately, I think, like a lot of people that had access to higher education, my father left rural Indiana for bigger and better things, went to college, went to the Air Force, became a commercial pilot, moved to Minneapolis, and that's where I grew up. While he was away, a lot of things changed in Richmond, Indiana. Richmond, Indiana, at the time my dad left, would have been 1957. It was a thriving town. Things were bustling, things were going well, for lots of reasons, not the least of which it was a flourishing manufacturing environment. A lot of manufacturing was happening in that area to support automotive industry, aerospace industry, and as you all know, over the last 20, 30 years, because of automation, and because of globalization, the Midwest has been hit hard in terms of the things that have hit the people in the community and things of that nature. Now I'm going to come back to Richmond a little bit, and I want to talk to you about my experience. After graduating from high school in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, I went to college in Chicago, and I got my first job out in Northern California in the wine country. And now as a kid growing up in Minnesota and Chicago, and brutal winter weathers, muggy summers, I had no idea that there wasn't humidity. I had no idea there wasn't mosquitoes. And I remember asking the HR person, where's the company picnic gonna be when it rains? And she said, why would it rain? It's summer. It was a perfect first job. I was there 8 years. I loved every part of it. Bergenstocks, jeans, shorts, ping pong, foosball, beer at noon on Fridays. It was awesome. I was there 8 years. The only problem was that culture was limited. It lacked accountability, deadlines were often missed, and ultimately I became frustrated that we weren't achieving what we ought to be achieving for our customers and for our shareholders. So after 8 years I left, I went to another company, great company, a global company, had a fantastic reputation in the eyes of customers, and I was excited to join that company. Somewhat to my disappointment and surprise, I learned that although we were taking really good care of our customers, unfortunately we were running unfavorable variances in manufacturing. We were putting our employees in situations where they'd be away from home for an extended period of time. And again, although I thought we were taking really good care of one of our stakeholders, customers, we were falling short with shareholders and we were falling short with employees. So after that, I went to another company. I had finished my MBA also, and this was a company that had a stellar relationship in the eyes of investors. And I was excited to go somewhere where shareholders were a priority. And boy, were they. They got all the attention. And unfortunately, far too often, quality would suffer at the expense of hitting short-term goals. Employee turnover was really high. Usually when good people wanted to leave, we'd throw more money at them to try to get them to stay. That almost never worked in the long run. And it dawned on me that I hadn't yet worked at a place that knew how to take care of all three stakeholders at the same time. And then I reflected on whether any company actually ever had. And I haven't yet found one, a large one anyway, that has been able to do it in a sustained period. So when I decided to become the CEO of Belden in 2005, it was my goal to try to create a culture, to try to lead a company so that we would in fact meet the needs of all three groups simultaneously. We're on a journey. I'm certainly proud of what we've accomplished. If I look at our scorecard, we've achieved employee engagement well into the mid-80s. We've been able to create net promoter scores above 40 consistently, and we've also been able to generate shareholder returns above the S&P 500. But it is a difficult task to do and something that we're still learning how to do well. So let me take you back to Richmond, Indiana, because it's the place of a story that I'm most proud of that our organization did, that I think embodies what it is we're trying to accomplish. Richmond, Indiana is the location of our largest manufacturing facility. It's 1 million square feet. It has gone through a lot of challenges like factories in the Midwest have. It was actually constructed by our founder, Mr. Belden, in 1928. Somewhat ironically, he put this facility in place to deal with the rising business costs in Chicago. So the people of Richmond, Indiana benefited in 1928 from many of the things that are challenges to them now. They were the low-cost region in 1928, and now, of course, they're trying to combat low-cost regions around the world. The facility itself has done well, but we have increasingly struggled in being able to find qualified employees in our facility. Business is good, revenues have been growing, and we're having a hard time finding qualified people. I was surprised to learn, and you might be as well, that our biggest challenge, unfortunately, was finding people that could pass a pre-employment drug screening test. 10 to 15% of everybody who applied for a job at our facility failed the drug test. Unfortunately, this is not a problem unique to Belden, and it's not a problem that's unique to Richmond, Indiana. It is rampant throughout our country. Opioid abuse and drug abuse today is a bigger problem than car accidents were at its peak in 1972. It kills more people today than guns did in its peak in 1993, and more than the AIDS crisis at its peak in 1995. More people died in 2016 in the United States from drug overdose than all the soldiers that died in the Vietnam War. 2/3 of these deaths come from either prescription or illicit opioids. I remember one night I was having a conversation with one of our directors, and he said, "If you don't solve this problem, who will?" And my team came up with a wonderful idea. With help from local communities, support groups and experts in the field, we came up with a program, we call it Pathways to Employment. If you fail the drug test, we will pay for a personalized rehab program for you. And if you complete the program and you commit yourself to a drug-free life, you have a job at Belden. We've had 30 people go through the program so far, and I can tell you that their stories are heartbreaking. We have one individual who injured his back, started taking prescription opioids, got hooked on them, the doctor wouldn't prescribe anymore, and he began taking heroin. We had another individual who had struggled with alcoholism their entire life, and after a family crisis, spiraled out of control and started taking opioids. We had another employee whose sister had an injury, also got hooked on opioids, and passed away. Happened to be a former employee of Belden. This particular employee said to me, "If this program had been in place, I think my sister would still be alive." Also said to me that if this can save one person, one family, it makes all the difference in the world. Now, I believe that our culture was unique in our ability to identify this problem, because I feel as though our company realized that it wasn't just a nice thing to do, it was the right business decision. By doing so, we've reduced turnover, we have created a sense of connection and goodwill with our employees, but also with our customers. And it is making us all more effective at what we do. Not surprisingly, the people that are best at their job aren't necessarily the people that are struggling or not struggling with drugs. In fact, in many cases, they're not associated at all. And so it's been an incredible program for us and one that we're really proud of. And we're not stopping in Richmond. We've taken it to other facilities throughout the United States, and we're also making our program or blueprint available to other companies in the United States to adopt as well. But we look for other ways to do the things that matter to the communities that we're in. We recently opened up a facility in Pune, India, because many of our products and services are necessary for the expansion of the economy in India. We make networking switches and routers, and they're used in all sorts of applications. And at the time that we put the facility in place, we identified that one of the struggles was clean drinking water. So we immediately put in a reverse osmosis clarifying system of water so that 850 people in the local town would be able to have access to clean water, which they didn't have before. Arthur Brooks is one of my favorite social scientists. He says that happiness is a function of earned success. That if you give somebody something, that is not sustained happiness. I certainly have examples of my life where people have been given things from their parents, maybe they've inherited money, and they're not always very happy. I think the same is true when people are part of programs by the government that are well-intended. I fundamentally believe the way that people get happy is by giving them the opportunity to have success, to have meaning in their lives, to have meaning for themselves, and to have meaning for the lives of other people that they work with. And that's what we've tried to do at Belden. When my son was young, he asked me, "Do you make cable?" The company I work at, Belden, we make cable. Mr. Belden founded the company in 1902, making cable products. He said to me, "Do you make cable?" And I said, "Yes, we make cable." And my son said, "No, do you make cable?" And I said, "No, I don't make the cable." He said, "Then what do you do?" It's a tough question to answer. I said, "My job is simple. I need to keep customers, employees, and shareholders all happy at the same time." That's not easy. And every single day is a challenge. But anybody that has the privilege to lead a company, I challenge them to take that and try to make it real every single day. And you're not going to make the right decision every day, but I'm convinced that if you think about your responsibility in those terms, as having responsibility for all the stakeholders and all of them are equal, you have an opportunity to create something truly unique and make not just a better company, but a far better society. Thank you.